Those are some nice looking headphones, though.
I've
They
had
look
them for a
comfy.
long time. They're comfy. I mean, they're not like, I don't think they were an expensive pair. Like, you know, I can't even
I'll,
name
I'll tell you what.
Sennheiser, high
Yeah, those
quality. I don't know.
those ones that we had back at the radio station back in the day. Those are so
Yeah.
comfy. I really
Yeah.
wanted. I've never considered stealing an item, but it was that. That was the
They're
item that
pretty
I would have
comfy.
stolen.
But I think that's all I do because they're not really noise canceling or anything.
No.
So,
Yeah.
but they're comfortable and they got, the head cushion. This is great talk.
It is good headphone.
People don't appreciate a good over-the-ear headphone anymore, I don't think, because we've gotten so used to they want the tiniest thing possible in their ear. And I get it.
Earbuds, they want the no wires now,
I mean, I would prefer the no wire. I
like a good wire.
I think I would like to upgrade to a nice pair of over-the-ear headphones. So we'll see about that.
Oh yeah, that was always my I always wanted to save up for that, and I would always buy little aux adapters, So I'd have my little headphones I can plug into my thing, but then I could break those headphones, plug them in at work. Back when I worked for a professional radio station.
Oh, you're right.
I just use the same headphones at work and at home. They had a really good pair. Still do. They're somewhere back there, somewhere by my Xbox, I'm sure.
I'll tell you what I can't get on board with is I do see a lot of people with over-the-ear headphones at the gym. And I can't do the sweatiness. I need an earbud for that.
Yeah.
But I also get, sometimes they fall out when you're running. What can you do?
First
world problem.
I think that we can both agree, hopefully, that the headphone that was like the little headphone that went over your head, but they were like two little circle discs, like two little Oreo sized discs that just went on your ears that just like fell apart. Hurt. They flew off your head so easily, and everybody could hear what you're listening to.
Everyone could hear. The little
nothing does that.
Foamy pieces would rip off, and it would just scratch your ear and poke it.
So then you're just stuck with an uncovered earbud, just scraping up against your ear. It was awful.
Wow.
Yeah, what a flashback! It's the kind that Star-Lord has on his Walkman. Those are those kind of headphones.
That's true. That's true.
we should mention that Garrett's taken some time off from the show before we really get started.
Yeah, gonna take a little hiatus to work on some good fun stuff that he's been working on for a while. So it'll be we're not going anywhere though. The show it's not going to change anything for you, dear listener. We will continue to bring you all the great new movies and good stuff like that.
It's true. The only thing changing, less wrestling references, more 2000s country references.
Probably to both. Yeah. I mean, I think we're going to, Garrett, I think we'll pop in here and there throughout the summer. We might try to get Andrew to pop in. We might try to get some other friends to pop in. So be checking your inboxes, people, because we might be reaching out to you. Yeah. I think it'd be fun.
Oh yeah. We'll try to have, and then Garrett, his plan is to return full time after he's concluded some business.
Once his business is finished.
I don't know if he wants us sharing what he's doing.
It's not my story to tell.
In case it doesn't go well,
Yeah. But speaking of guests, I got to be a guest on a podcast.
Oh yeah, you told me
very
about
recently that I was excited about. So our friends over at the Double Feature Movie Club asked me to be on to talk about a pair of Robert Redford movies. Which is not my wheelhouse, and I had to admit it. I was like, guys, Robert Redford's a little bit of a blind spot for me.
Are they the ones he did with Paul Newman?
No, they were not. They were newer. Dang. They were newer Robert Redford movies. So we talked about All Is Lost, which came out in 2013, which is fascinating because Robert Redford is the only person in that movie. It is a survival story. He is the only person in the movie, and he only speaks 41 words. It's completely dialogueless. So it's
like 65 minus dinosaurs.
Right. And then we talked about The Old Man and the Gun, which is kind of like a classic 70s heist.
Yeah. I think I've heard of that one, actually.
That one, according to Robert Redford, is his final film. He decided that would be his retirement movie. And so far, he's kept to it, I believe.
Yeah, his actually, I believe technically he had a little post-retirement appearance in Avengers Endgame, but
Oh,
he had
you know
shot
what?
that. He had shot
You're
that
right.
before though.
You're right. That's probably true.
They were
You've
sitting on
heard,
that for a while. But it was I guess he had filmed that before he filmed Old Man of the Gun, and it
yeah.
just came out after.
But if y'all want to listen to that, and you should, because they talk about a lot of fun movies too and have a good time over there, you can check them out at Double Feature Movie Club on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, you can hear Max the dog squeaking a toy back there.
Yeah, he's our third co-host this week, I guess.
So my wife was asking me at the end of the Jumanji podcast, she goes, "What happened at the end of the show?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Oh, Josh just like stopped talking." And then like Garrett said, he's having so much fun. And when I was so confused that I was like, "Oh," and then I went and listened to it back and I went, "Oh yeah, Max, you can, so I had to
you
give the
can't tell in the audio.
For the audio listener, Max the dog was squeaking his toy like crazy.
I didn't think about that.
So it was quite funny. But Josh was like, "I just gotta mute the mic and let this happen."
Power through it. Well, I can't stop him. He's a madman. He's a madman.
He's power hungry.
I know. Well, do we want to get into the movie? We're talking about a big one today.
Yes. Let's do it.
We're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. You know it. You love it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Guardians' final movie, we've been told. And I believe that. I think we're gonna... Ooh, man. Let's try to keep it spoiler free for as long as we can.
Yeah.
I think that's smart.
Yeah, and then we'll warn you for upcoming spoilers. But I think we can try to keep it keep it surface level to start. And if we have to get into the nitty-gritty, we will.
We will give plenty of warning, I promise.
Yes.
So this movie tells a little bit of a different story than we're used to, I think. We find the Guardians needing to save Rocket's life. That's I don't think a spoiler. That's essentially the plot. They're trying to they need to go on a quest essentially to find an object and some people to save his life. And along the way, they get into hijinks. That's the plot.
Yeah, we're sort of given we're sort of told Rocket's backstory.
Yep.
Get some of that flashback, and then we go on some adventures. There's laughs, but there's also some very so there's some serious stuff as well. So we previously have reviewed Guardians 1 and 2 back in the very brief Soundtooth Studio days, and I don't remember if that was the recording where I smashed my head on the bottom of their recording table.
I forgot about that.
Did you? We did a couple of different recordings in that studio from I don't know, who knows what year, 2018, sometime in 2018 and sometime at the end of 2018 when they got hosed on that deal. They got like the person next door just offered the studio the renter more money, and they were like, "Yeah, sure, take it." I was like, "Well, anyway." So we had a lot of fun in there. We constantly were trying to set up the sound equipment. What should have been like an hour long recording was always like a 3.5 hour recording because we had to like set up all the mics and get it all figured out. But our good friends over at Soundtooth, was it Landry and Quinn were renting it? Was it them together?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know the contractual details of their previous deals. Listen,
but yeah. Anyway, so you can listen to our Guardians 1 and Guardians Volume 2 podcast. I love both Guardians movies tremendously. If I had to do like if you went and you like did like a ranked based thing off of my letterbox list, I think Guardians and Captain America both are like very high ranking for me, which is great because it couldn't be different. They're very different in terms of their overall franchise feel. First Guardians is great. Second Guardians, I personally love a lot. I think a lot of people don't like it as much as the first one, but I loved it. And so I honestly, first impressions, I don't think I can praise this third movie enough. It was tremendous. It had people always want to talk about the greater MCU. Oh, the MCU is back. Oh, this is what the MCU should be like. Blah, 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 all that nonsense. They back and forth. But honestly, just a really solid movie that if you have enjoyed the last two Guardians movies, and honestly, even if you only just kind of enjoyed it, you will like this too, I think. Very emotional story. one of the characters that I've liked this whole time, Rocket. We really get to see more of what makes him who he is. And a solid, not like the most complicated villain, but a solid villain that you really want to see get beat, and and then they handle the aftermath of Avengers Endgame and Infinity War in a way that doesn't cheapen that movie, but helps to tell a unique story, because it could have been very easy to take the decisions of those movies and just kind of go, whatever, and move on with it, and just go right back to telling the same story they were already doing. Do I have complaints? I probably have a couple, I guess, but overall, I loved it.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I also loved it. I thought it was really a fitting into this trilogy. And there's a lot, like you said, to be said about people talking about, this is what the MCU I like. I've seen several videos on TikTok of people being like, this made me feel like Marvel was back. And I have a small issue with that, which is that's what they say to every Marvel movie that comes out. They always say that this is the one that
someone saying they're back. Somebody else will say, "Oh, it's on full woke now."
Right.
Spectrum with each film.
It happens every time. So I'm not gonna. I have no opinion on that. What I will say though is that this movie kind of it doesn't fit the formula that Marvel's been doing lately, and that is in its favor in a huge way. And I think that's what people are noticing. It feels refreshing because it is a fully contained story. It is about these characters. There's not crossover, I think I can say. And it's not about saving the world or fighting a massive villain or anything. It is about saving the life of one of their family members. That's what the main issue is. So
that's the stakes. Yeah,
those are the stakes. So it's different stakes. It's a different kind of story, and so it feels refreshing, I think, because so much of the Marvel universe has become interconnected and interwoven that sometimes you forget how nice it can be to just watch a self-contained story. And they've done a few of those lately, but I don't know.
And they've done others with degrees of that. I would say that Wakanda Forever was a fairly contained story with a little bit of interjection into a story that may have a thread that may be picked up later. And then you have something like Doctor Strange and Ant-Man that were like very heavily intertwined with other stories that have been previously told, and laying groundwork for bigger future stories. Yeah. So, you kind of, that might be sort of, it's in terms of the MCU as a whole, there's sort of a give and take on, some people really love it. And there was a time where I was all I wanted. I was like, oh man, I want this character to show up, and I really want these team ups, and I want all that stuff. And now it's nice to kind of settle. And it is the movies where things are kind of like one character story, or in this case, one group of character story. And I thought it went really well here. So I also, Josh, did you watch the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special?
I did. Yeah.
So this one picks up a little bit after that. And we see that Peter's still struggling with Gamora and with the state of their relationship now, because the Gamora that he loved is gone. Spoilers for Infinity War.
Right.
And but this new version from an alternate past is here. And I thought that the dynamic there was really interesting, and that they could have like I said, Gunn could have very easily just written it to be a simple, blah, 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 now we're in love again and everything's fine. But it was kind of interesting that they didn't go that path, and it kind of took on its own new relationship. And it's not like a nice bow on it. The consequences of previous films are real. And on that note, We got to see sort of a more, we got to see obviously a lot of Rocket, but I think that everybody from whether it was Nebula or Mantis or Drax, they all got to have their moments to to move their character forward and to show how they have grown since that first Guardians movie when they were all, like a group of, basically broken runaways, and how this family has changed them.
Yeah, there's a lot of growth for the characters in these movies, and that is, I think, a huge credit to James Gunn as a writer and director of this entire series, that he's been able to do that, because these characters are so different from where they are in the first Guardians movie. It's crazy. I mean, one of the I think the biggest one to me is Nebula. Who is maybe for the first time actually pretty likable in this movie. She's not. She still has her angry, bitter moments, but she also shines a lot, and you get to see some Nebula humor in this. And I'm like, this is great character development. I love this.
Yeah, because she started off as just basically henchman femme fatale, right?
Right.
And a little bit of her story was there, but not as fully explored as it could be. And then you get this great story in Volume 2 about her and Gamora and their rivalry and what their relationship was like, and they get some kind of catharsis. And then the next part of that is her role in Infinity War, her role in Endgame, which this movie I don't know if this was always James Gunn's thought on it, but he picks that thread up so well, because I'll get into a little bit of spoilers here, but Nebula is really affected by Rocket's state when he gets hurt. They're all affected to some degree, but it's kind of interesting to see Nebula and how impacted she is, because when you remember is that Nebula and Rocket were the only two Guardians that survived Thanos' snap, So it was, for all that time, the only Guardians left were Nebula and Rocket. So their relationship grew in that time. And we saw a little bit of it in Endgame, them interacting. And you see it here that that time where they were holding it together, that it really bonded them. And she's really motivated to save Rocket's life as much as anybody else. But you also see that with Peter, he is unwilling to lose another friend, the way that he's lost others at this point. So I would say, with the exception of Drax has his emotional moments at times in this movie too. But with the exception of Drax, everybody's really busted up about Rocket being hurt. And Drax is like, he's hurt, but he's also kind of like,
in
still
his
there.
own way, right?
Yeah,
Because Drax doesn't really feel feelings.
No.
And there's some great moments in playing with that too that I really enjoyed with him and Mantis.
Yes.
And that's another great aspect of this series, is not just how they work together as a team, but the smaller relationships within it. Drax and Mantis, Drax and Nebula, Rocket and everyone. It's just really cool to see them shine kind of off the team as well.
Yeah, those dynamics. And then, of course, you can't leave out Groot, who is now Jacked Groot.
Jacked Groot was a borderline too much, and that reminds me of this is a James Gunn nitpick that is a personal thing.
Okay,
why is he so disgusting? James Gunn, why is he so gross?
Who Groot?
No, James Gunn. There's so many gross visuals in this movie.
Yeah.
That remind me of some of the gross visuals in the Suicide Squad, and of course, and some of the other movies he's done previously. But this is the most gross Guardians movie.
Yeah, he has some good, just generally gruesome, gross stuff. It's not even bloody all the time.
No, it's not. It's not gory. It's gross.
It's just ugh.
Yeah, it's not remotely gory for the most part.
There's just some ick.
It is a lot of ick.
Mild spoiler: they go to a a laboratory that is made of biomaterial. So instead of being made of metal and stuff, it's made of skin and flesh.
It's just gross. Yeah, it's like they're walking
squidgy
around on a flesh machine.
Yeah.
It's
And
icky.
And the cameras are eyeballs.
I don't need that.
It was very funny, but that is where we get some fun. That's one of the places where we get some fun cameos from this movie.
True.
Yeah, you're right, and I think it goes back to his Slither days.
He's just gross. I know.
He's a gross guy. It does give me tremendously a lot of confidence. I already had confidence, but it gives me even more confidence that Superman is in good hands, because if James Gunn can make people care this much about a raccoon named Rocket, then man, what can he do with Superman? So I'm really hopeful for his pickup there. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that. I think, I was a little, I wouldn't say recently I was nervous, but like in the months coming up to this movie, I was a little nervous about it because, this movie got delayed so massively because of the inner turmoil going on between Disney and James Gunn and his firing and then his rehiring and all that I just kind of thought, man, I just hope this movie doesn't suffer because of that. And that wouldn't really be a knock on anyone's talent involved. I just, sometimes those things screw up movies. So I was nervous, but I think in hindsight, now I hope, I hope that whoever fired James Gunn has apologized many, many times, because I can't imagine this movie having been done without him.
No. Yeah. I mean, to kind of look ahead, to jump off that and look ahead, this is the end of this iteration of the Guardians. Right. Does that mean that we'll never have another Guardians of the Galaxy movie named Guardians of the Galaxy? I don't think so, because I think they've left the door open well enough that you could have new iterations of a team called the Guardians of the Galaxy. But and James Gunn himself, I was watching a TikTok the other day. He gives his blessing to that beat, and he says what he hopes is, if anybody picks up the Guardians of the Galaxy, title to move forward, that they use their own style, they create their own style, and they don't feel like they have to copy what he did or have to try to capture what he did. Do your own thing with it.
Right. That's really the way to look at it, is that this is the end of James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy. What happens in the future, who knows? But I can't imagine someone else making this movie after having seen it, or it not being made at all. Like, I think it is, as far as the offshoot franchises go within the MCU, it might be the most perfect trilogy they've got.
Yeah.
I think it's a stronger 3 films than Iron Man. Captain America is the only other arguable one, I think. Yeah, those 3 movies are really good.
Because even though the first Avenger is it's pretty different than Winter Soldier and Civil War. Yeah, I still find it really enjoyable. I like it too. It is good. So it's a good trilogy. This is probably the most complete one, because, like you said, well, I guess that's not true, because I think Ant-Man had the same director. I was going to say the same director was there for each one of these. Ant-Man had Peyton Reed on all 3 of those, but the Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man all had different directors within the franchise. So they didn't have one director for the full trilogy. So James Gunn's been able to tell his full story here. And obviously it's changed and grown, and, it was delayed by his firing and rehiring, and then the pandemic delayed it a little bit more. This film would have come out like a year or 2 probably after Endgame, if in a perfect world. But here we are, and I honestly, I think everything really worked out, because it ends up being a third film in a franchise, and I don't know how often we can say this, that perfectly complements its predecessors, and kind of makes them better in retrospect, because now you have this context of this film, that when you rewatch Guardians 1 and you rewatch Guardians Volume 2, you're gonna know some of that backstory, and it's gonna make you appreciate the times where they did foreshadow what was gonna happen, and the times where they did, leave a little something just for you to go, man, I want to know more about that, So I think, I think this is maybe the best third one. I don't know if I can say that for sure or not. It's definitely one of the best third ones in a franchise.
I'd take that fight.
Yeah.
I do also want to talk about the soundtrack a little bit.
Oh yes, I want to talk about that too.
The Guardians are nothing without their soundtrack, of course.
Yes. And nobody does it like James Gunn.
Expertly curated by James Gunn. I tell you what, this is a really good one. I like this soundtrack more than the second one. I don't know about Volume 1 was really good too, though.
Volume 1 was iconic. It started it.
Yeah.
Volume 2, I have grown to love.
Yeah.
And then Volume 3, first reaction, there's only like 2 or 3 songs that really stood out to me. So going back, I can't wait to watch it again, because going back, I'll probably pick up on those other ones that didn't really stand out. But I don't know. You can look up the soundtrack right now. Spoiler if you want.
I've got a list.
Spoiler if you want out there, but you can find the soundtrack right now on the internet. But I love Beastie Boys, No Sleep Till Brooklyn. That was
excellent use.
Literally rocket in my chair. I always pop for Beastie Boys, even though I wasn't a Beastie Boys fan as a kid, but Steve Doyle turned me into a Beastie Boys fan.
Ain't that something? Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned that, because I felt like
oh, you muted yourself. Oh, because it's squeaking?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, you felt like what?
I felt like this movie and I wanted to ask you and Garrett this specifically. Parts of this movie really reminded me of college, because there are a handful of songs in here that are like specifically the three of us RSU radio era. This Beastie Boys, obviously, because of the Doyle. Dog Days Are Over is featured in a great moment. San Francisco by the Mowglis really piqued my interest. And then
it's been a long time since I've heard a Mowgli song.
And then the Flaming Lips.
Yes,
I was all like, this is reminding me, this movie's making me nostalgic, and that means I'm gonna cry.
It was really surprising which songs popped up, because at the end of Volume 2, Peter gets a Zune.
Love that.
Would be circa what, 2006?
I got a friend who swears by the Zune.
I didn't have a Zune, but I had a friend who had the Zune, and it did look cool. But
they swear by it, the people who had one.
It did look cool, and I'm sure it had some fun features. And I remember I told my wife, because she forgot about the Zune, and I said, "Oh, it's one of the best jokes in Volume 2, where Kraglin gives him the Zune, and he says it's got 300 songs on it." And Peter's face was just like, 300 songs? Like, it was the most amazing thing he had ever heard. He could never imagine more than 12 songs on a tape. But obviously there's the song that they use in the trailer, Since You've Been Gone, by Rainbow. And then I also was really excited to hear Crazy on You, which is always good, by Heart. So there was still some of that 60s, 70s, 80s vibe in there too. Did the film it opened with Radiohead, didn't it?
It opened with an acoustic version of Creep, yeah.
So
that I also really enjoyed.
So there's your Turbo's Metal Meltdown a little bit there. Is Radiohead metal? I don't know.
No.
Maybe I'm wrong. Is Radiohead not metal?
Radiohead is not metal.
I don't know nothing about metal. So. I remember I told Turbo asked me my favorite metal band, and I was like, I only know Pantera. He was like, that's fine. But yeah, I can't wait to watch it back again, because I remember walking out of Volume 2 and being like, soundtrack wasn't quite as good.
It wasn't. It didn't. Take.
But upon rewatching it, several times, it's grown on me a lot. I love Brandy. I love Come a Little Bit Closer. I love all that stuff. So I'm sure this one will grow on me a lot too. Anyway, He's great at this. I'm kind of wondering if he's going to do this with Superman Legacy a little bit, if he's going to use some licensed music in that, because he did it with Suicide Squad, which also had a really great soundtrack. So I am curious to see how that goes going forward. He has a great job of selecting these things.
I do feel like it's part of his style, so it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me.
Was there so yeah, we talked about.
I had a thought that I was trying to think of, and I completely lost it.
Oh, we also had
that was
Bruce Springsteen was on here.
Yep, yeah, we got to hear Badlands. Okay, yes, Brightburn. Do you remember the movie Brightburn?
Yes, I did. I remember. I never saw it, but I saw it come out.
It was James Gunn produced, and it also, if I remember right, featured a very well-used Billie Eilish song. And I remember thinking, oh, that's the James Gunn produce. That's his producer tag. That's his "We the best music." It's a well-placed pop culture reference,
right?
Musical form. So yeah, he probably will have some kind of musical flair to Superman.
Yeah, but like you said, I can't imagine anybody else doing this, because it was such a, people have said this, and I think it's fair to say, I think that two of the most influential movies on the MCU specifically, now there's been a lot of influences that different directors have drawn from, but I think in terms of the MCU's style over the last few years, I think two of the more influential movies are both Captain America Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy. There was something about how those two different movies did a superhero movie. One, it was the Russo style of that sort of like quick action, fast paced, spy wit or, kind of thing. And then the Guardians version of just like super ridiculous humor, crazy characters. Hey, you know what? People will accept a talking tree if you just do it right. Right. And those two things kind of are the two, the cosmic side, the cosmic weird comic book side, and the sort of, we're trying to make this as realistic as we can comic book side, and how those two things have merged together over time. Those are I feel like the two most influential MCU movies. So James Gunn has, had a huge impact on comic book movies, because I think you can see its influence outside of the MCU as well. We talked about how Dungeons and Dragons reminded us a lot of Guardians. I think that you can see a little bit of influence there with Shazam. I'm not saying that, these movies are ripoffs in any way. I think they're their own thing, but I think that it's gone a long way of how to do superhero movies can be put to how successful Guardians was, and making a premise that shouldn't have worked and making it work.
Yeah. It absolutely works all the way through, and it only continues to get weirder. And still works. I mean, we get a talking dog in this movie. We haven't even mentioned Cosmo. Cosmo is a great character who has a great running joke with Sean Gunn's character. Kraglin. I almost said Kilgore, and I don't even know what that means.
Kilgore. That's another
character of something.
Kilgore. Yeah. Why do I know that name?
Exactly right.
Kilgore. He was in something, that's for sure.
I don't know, but
are you Googling it?
I am. I'm Googling Kilgore.
It's not Killmonger. That wasn't Black
Panther. It's not Killmonger. It's Kilgore. I don't know. It was Kilgore is a character in Apocalypse Now, but I don't think that's where I'm getting it from.
What was David Tennant's character's name in Jessica Jones?
Oh my gosh! I think that's. I don't think it's it.
No.
I think that's.
That's Kilgrave.
Now I think that's what I'm doing though.
Yeah.
I think I'm thinking Kilgrave. Anyway, Kraglin. Gets a nice little running bit with Cosmo that I enjoyed a lot.
Yeah, Cosmo. Who we do
also
see.
Kraglin. Yeah, has a great storyline. In his quest to, what would you call it?
I don't know, sort of pick up Yondu's legacy.
Take on the mantle of the Ravagers or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, step into Yondu's footsteps.
If you go back, that is one of the parts of Volume 2 that admittedly makes me cry. Is you get a little bit more of Yondu's story. He was kind of like, or not Yondu. You get Yondu's story obviously, but Kraglin in the first one is kind of just Yondu's sidekick, who also kind of looks like a human. But between that first movie and now, you have in the second movie and in the holiday special, and now here you kind of get to see that like Kraglin and Rock and Peter are kind of, they're kind of similar. They're brothers in ways, and Kraglin is entrusted with Yondu's arrow, and he really wants to take it. He really wants to use it, and so, he gets his moment to sort of.
It's like everyone
grow.
in the movie gets a chance to like take the next step up as a character.
Here's something I can say. So people are going to have commentary. So like a lot of people are going to talk about Adam Warlock. So I'm going to exclude him a little bit in this particular comment. But for the most part, there are no wasted characters in this movie. Like there is nobody has like, even if their role is to be a creepy little monster that shuffles out of a cage, it's executed exactly how it needs to be executed. Now, that said, we can talk a little bit about Adam Warlock and Will Poulter. I think a lot of people were expecting Space Superman, with this character, because he is like a super powerful character. He does have a very specific story in the comics. And for the most part, he's kind of Will Poulter from We Are the Millers with superpowers. He's a little bit of a dope. He's a little bit of a man baby. And it's funny and it works. And he made me laugh, but I do think that is going to be a character that James is leaving for someone else to kind of tell a bigger story with, because here he kind of starts in that role that kind of Nebula had in the first Guardians, like you talked about, where he's kind of a henchman for the most part. And a lot of people some people are going to have a problem with that, but I think everything else is so good, I can forgive it.
Yeah, I will say that Adam Warlock's one of my nitpicks. I don't know anything about that character, so I don't have any background knowledge on him, but I do feel like Will Poulter seemed to be underutilized. I think he's a lot better as an actor than what he did with Adam Warlock. But maybe that's the character. I don't know him. And I also felt like at times his storyline made the movie feel a little overstuffed.
That's fair.
There were parts of the movie that I felt were a little overstuffed, and that's just like the most criticism I have.
That's fair, because I do think that you could, for the most part, you could do the movie without him, and with a few couple tweaks, the movie would work the same. But I think obviously they had set it up, and I don't think that, this is my speculation, I don't think James Gunn wanted to just leave that thread completely unpulled on. So he did what he could with it, and to an extent, James has wildly changed a lot of these characters from their comic book versions.
I'm sure, yeah.
So like it's no more egregious than like the changes he did with Drax and Mantis and the changes that he did with Star-Lord. It's no more egregious than that. So I mean, this is James Gunn's version of Guardians of the Galaxy, right? This is not. It's not. I don't think he ever intended it for it to be a 1-for-1 of the comics to the screen. And if you can accept that, you'll be all right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything, so I accept him as he is. I just don't know. We'll see. Like you said, if anyone does anything with him in the future, don't know that I like him if this is all we ever see of him.
Well, you know what? That's funny. He's a kind of a big dopey man baby right now.
Yeah,
but. Where will he reappear? Who knows? Will he reappear? Who knows? We'll find out. I mean, Will Poulter's a great actor, so if you got him available, I'd use him for something. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I had one other thing that I kind of wanted to talk about, and now I'm blanking on what it was.
Oh no. That's the worst.
Yeah, dang. So go back to. Do you have any more nitpicks of the movie?
Not that I'm willing to spoil.
Okay.
But I do have one more, but I'll tell you later. It's really small.
Okay.
And maybe I'll talk about it in a future episode when more people have watched the movie.
Maybe. I'm trying to see if there's a hint somewhere in this Wikipedia article that will put me back on track. We also get introduced to a couple other new characters. We get to meet Rocket's first family, if you will. Yep. And so I thought that was all handled incredibly well. It was made me emotional. It made my wife very emotional. There's been a lot of talk about the animal cruelty in this movie, and we're kind of late getting in, but I kind of think, that I was talking with my wife about it because she had been told it was really graphic, some of the animal cruelty, and we were talking about it, and I was like, I don't think it rose to the level of graphic, but it definitely is unsettling, for sure. Like if you're squeamish about that sort of thing, but for the most part, everything kind of happens off camera. There's a lot of implied animal torture, but there's nothing overly gruesome that you see. When we talked about the gross stuff, it really doesn't. I don't think you see too many animals get too gruesomely. Now you see the aftermath a little bit with some of these characters, but and it's unsettling to see. But at the same time, those characters are so warm themselves that it kind of overshadows what they look like. Yeah. So I don't know. I can't think of what else. The other thing I was going to talk about. But yeah,
I had one more thing I wanted to talk about, and it was the villain in this movie. The high evolutionary.
Yeah.
We've talked in the past about how like sometimes these Marvel villains aren't that great. I liked this one a lot.
Yeah.
This one felt like sometimes I was like, is this Guardians of the Galaxy or like a really high thinking Star Trek episode? Because we're talking about the ethics of I don't even know, like
genetic manipulation,
manual evolution at a high speed. Like it's the real villain in this is like not about, it's not a Thanos style. I want to wipe out civilization to make it better. This is like, I want to play God to make creatures better.
Yeah. He wants
it's almost more evil to me.
Yeah, it's like it's Dr. Moreau, he's like, it's very specifically evil. Yeah, he doesn't want to wipe out the universe. He doesn't really care about the rest of the universe. He wants to create his own perfect civilization, and he doesn't. And in his mind, the ends will always justify the means as far as that is concerned. And that makes for a very one-dimensional villain. But I think that the actor here performs it to an incredibly sadistic level. And you do see moments of his quote unquote, his sweet side, his good side, when he's teaching Rocket. There's a little bit of spoiler, but when he's teaching Rocket, you see him being kind of seemingly being an attentive, helpful, a guide to Rocket. But it's very quick. It's very brief before he turns that switch and you see, oh, this is what he's actually like, though. This is his actual thing. And yeah, it's played wonderfully. You hate him. You want to see him get beat. This is a good job of like, you don't really want to, there's some villains that you relate to a little bit. You don't relate to the High Evolutionary.
If you do, you need help.
Yeah, this is a red flag movie. If you
red flag.
I really related to the High Evolutionary. No.
No.
But yeah, it's a really interesting. I mean, it's an interesting concept, and I think that the way that they performed it here, the way they execute here, is like Star Trek. It is like they ran across somebody who's been just kind of operating unchecked in the galaxy somewhere and doing pretty despicable things over time. And you kind of, and do you know how to pronounce the actor's name?
I don't
either. So I feel bad about that. But I won't butcher it in that case, but he performs it so well and it's written so well that you totally understand why Rocket is afraid of him. And why Rocket does not want in any way to go back to this.
Yes, we've heard for the first two movies now that what happened to Rocket was unspeakable to the point where we never find out until this movie when we're shown. And I feel like they live up to it. Like, Rocket went through some stuff and it was bad. I mean... you mentioned the animal cruelty earlier. It's not that it's graphic per se, but it is like very emotionally hitting the way it's presented. Rocket.
because the way that Rocket develops is that when they experiment on him, he doesn't suddenly become like a fully functioning adult. He's a child when these experiments start to work. When he starts to be able to think and speak, he's a child, which makes it extra unsettling that he's so, young at mind and young at heart, having these, generally awful things done to him, and that his friends are this way too. So it's very it's very it's unsettling. And you think about how old he is when he first leaves. It totally justifies how he is when we first meet him in Guardians of the Galaxy, where he's angry and vindictive, and he trusts no one, and he has managed to establish a relationship with Groot. I was kind of hoping, there was a part of me that told me we'd get one more flashback where he meets Groot, but because I would love to know how he and Groot formed their bond, because that was the only thing we knew about him in that first Guardians movie, was he established a bond with Groot, and that would have been interesting to see. But I'm with it not being on the table at this point. Anyway, like I said, not wasted. High evolutionary. He chews up scenery, and he's intimidating. And man, you want to talk about, spoiler alert, grossness? We got to see the. It's like that episode of Family Guy where he goes to the Phantom of the Opera. Let's see the gross half of your face. It was pretty gruesome.
It was unfortunate. That is absolutely true. It was unfortunate. And in the close-ups of his face throughout the movie, I was like, I don't like how this skin bunches up. I feel like that's coming off later.
No, that would definitely gave me Star Trek Insurrection vibes.
Yeah,
with the face stretchers.
A lot of Star Trek in this movie.
It's true. There's Star Trek's a good influence to go with.
It is.
I finally thought of it.
Okay, good. What is it? Oh no.
What did you think of forgot it. Dang it.
Oh,
all right. Well, that's embarrassing. What a
You're
podcast.
Killing me.
What a podcast. Well, you said something and it brought it back to my mind. Now I've lost it again.
Well,
but face stretchers.
Unfortunately.
That was it. What was your crowd like? Do you have a good crowd at the theater?
Good question. It was pretty good. I mean, I went on Sunday afternoon, so it was pretty full, but it wasn't like rowdy. But good laughs, good laugh moments.
Yeah, mine was actually pretty. So we went Friday morning. It's like Friday, like right afternoon, and it was only about, it was only about 20 people in the theater, so it was actually pretty sparse for a matinee, especially for a matinee. So there was, most of the laughing was my wife, but there was some, people were into it, people were laughing, and people were not cheering, but definitely when when those gross stuff happens, there was that collective. Ugh,
that was me. That was
things
me.
like that.
Yeah, not a good audience. It was a good time.
Yeah, and yeah.
All right. Well, we are getting pushed for time, so I think we need to.
That's a good transition, though, because we talk about how the audience was around the world.
Yeah, how did this movie debut in its opening weekend?
So we delayed a recording by a day, and it helped out because between the estimates and the final numbers, the movie went up about $4 million. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 debuted the weekend of May 5th, 2023, domestically to $118.4 million, which is a pretty solid open for this year, as well as, anytime really. Over 100 million has always been good.
Yep.
Internationally, it brought in 170.8 for a worldwide open of 289.3. Comparing that to the other Guardians movies, it's above Guardians 1, but it's below Guardians 2 in terms of its open. Guardians 1 opened 146.5. Guardians 1 opened at 94. So it's between those two.
I think that's a pretty good place to be.
It is. It's not a bad place to be, honestly. And Guardians 2 had a lot of the hype because that first one was so good.
Right.
And there's been a dying down. Not everything makes a huge amount of money these days. It's right in the middle for the MCU as a whole. It's the new median for the Guardians movie for the entire MCU, coming in right around the number 16 spot. It opened just a little bit above where Spider-Man Homecoming opened and a little bit below Thor Ragnarok. Again, not bad company. Yeah, so let's go to the letterbox game.
Yeah, so how do we want to do this today? We don't have a third. Do we just want to hope for the best? I do have the reviews pulled up to read a couple of faves.
Some of these might hurt my heart. I'm just worried.
They will. I think some. Well, no, I don't know. And not in that way. I don't know. We've got 5 stars. This is not a movie. This is a fucking apology letter from Marvel Studios. I don't really know what that means, but it makes me laugh.
Yeah.
4 stars. Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. 3.5 stars. Come for the juvenile sarcasm. Stay for the animal torture.
Yeah.
4.5 stars. This is by a good margin my all-time favorite MCU project.
Really? That's interesting.
And
I'll take it though.
Finally, hooked on a feeling, and that feeling is emotional damage.
Emotional damage.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
A range of feelings in those reviews.
You go first.
Okay. I do kind of feel like it'll be on the higher end. Mm-hmm. I have no memory of what the first and second volumes were. And I'm not going to look. I'm not going to give us that crutch.
No, we'll save those for tiebreakers if we need one.
But I do think it'll be fairly high.
Yeah.
So I'm going to guess a 3.7.
I'm thinking about the same. I will say that because it's still so fresh, I'm going to hope that it's like a 3.9.
Okay. Got 3.7 for me and 3.9 for you. We were both off.
Oh, dang.
But in a good way.
Oh, it's higher.
Because you win. It's higher than 3.9. It's actually sitting at a 4.2 right now.
Wow, 4.2.
Which is surprisingly high to me.
Yeah, well,
for most movies.
It is. I'm sure it'll settle down. I don't remember what movie it was I was looking at the other day.
It's hard to get Letterboxd to agree on something up into the 4s.
Yeah, I was looking at I was looking at, I think it was Return of the Jedi, or it was Empire Strikes Back, and they're like at 4.4, and I was like 4.4. I was like shocked for a movie to be that high on Letterboxd. 4.2, I'm sure it'll even down, but if it were to stay over 4.0, I would be totally cool with that.
I would too. I think that's fair. I think
No, you go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, I haven't written or posted my review yet on Letterboxd. This is a sacred thing. But so I'm kind of thinking of my rating right off the bat, and I think I'm going to go with a 4.5.
Okay.
I think I have enough small nitpicks to keep it from 5. But dang, 4.5 is really high.
So it has been 3 days since I saw it. So this could always go down, because that happens with me with MCU movies. I rank them really high, and then over time they dwindle down a little bit, not dramatically, but a little bit. Thor Love and Thunder was 4 stars when I first saw it, and now it's down to like a 3. But I feel like I can confidently say that I love the Guardians movies. I loved Volume 2. And I gave Volume 2 5 stars. So Volume 3 is getting 5 stars from me. And it may be, that person said it was the best thing they'd ever seen. I don't know if I'm going to put it that high, but I am going to put it. I think it's going to make its way into my top 5. I really do, because this was great.
Yep. I'm not going to fight with you on that. I don't disagree with it.
Definitely, for sure, a top 10 MCU movie.
I think it's very good.
And number 1 movie of the year now for me.
And I think it's going to really cement this version of the Guardians as a really good thing that happened.
Yes.
People will think back on it fondly.
Oh yeah. I don't envy the person who has to follow up Guardians of the Galaxy.
No.
In the future.
All right. Well, that's our show.
Yes.
That's our show. Thank you for watching and or listening. Mm-hmm. We will have plenty of more content for you this month. We got a lot of great things coming up. So be sure to follow us on social media wherever you are. We are probably there too. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Go follow us there at So Many Sequels Pod, and then SoManySequels.com. You can find those links there. You can find a catalog of all of our past episodes, including Guardians Volume 1 and 2. And you can find us on wherever you get podcasts. Whatever your favorite podcasting app, go ahead and hit subscribe and leave us a review. That would be awesome. But we'll see you next time.